more looking I can. You're live. Hello. Oh, good Lord. Hi, everybody. Hey, let's put some State Azure song. This won't be dual streamed to Twitch. No, Brandon, no. No, it's a good question, but we do not, our contract does not allow us to dual stream. Hello, T Brown. Hi. Sorry, folks. Those of you watching on YouTube, the video on demand, because you were around at 5, which is when I originally thought I was going to be streaming. And then maybe some of you saw that I was going to be around at 7 because I realized, oh, I've got to be in Los Angeles today. I can't stream at 5 o'clock. Don't be ridiculous. And then it was 7:47 when it actually happened. I apologize. I feel terrible. I hate it when I say I'm going to do something at a certain time and then either my poor planning or circumstances conspire against me. Hello, Neon Kobold. Hello, David Lewis. Thanks to our mods for being available on a Friday night. And yeah, so it's your ace, Old Worlder. Hello, hi, hey, Joan Dudley. It is Matt. Hi. Can I pop out this chat? I'll pop out your chat. I don't know what that means. Pop out chat. Pop it out. Yeah. There you go. Oh, look, now you're all up there. Yeah, awesome, sweet. Oh, goodness, God. Hey, whoa, stream going fast. Hello, Matt. Hi, Matt. Thanks, mods. Right, James Dewar is probably in the future. He's probably in some other time zone. Oh, my goodness. A Lambda CDM shirt? I don't know what that is. Oh, I get it. Hello, hi. Well, it's also my first time here with you, Fabrizio1122, so I think that's worth noting. Do I have a Twitch? Yeah, it's MC/MCDM. Yeah, of course I do. How do you not know I have a Twitch? Also, by the way, if you're a tiny little person watching this for whatever reason, this is a live stream and I'm a grown-up and I use incredibly foul language that some people object to. Not me, of course. I think foul language, my attitude toward what is and what is not foul language is very different from many people. What's up with the chain? Well, we're going to come back, Ben Bowman, probably second week of January. No, we don't say fucking here. We sing it. Well, no, sorry. Yeah, Caleb Baker, I think season 2, book 2 of the chain will probably be live streamed to YouTube. Because I'll show that old world message. Absolutely. We'll probably be streamed to YouTube and maybe simul-streamed to Twitch. I don't know, but what that means, unpartnering with Twitch, which means unsubscribing. But folks, those of you watching, any more downtime sessions coming soon? I don't think so. That was not really, I titled that quite deliberately. That was the intro. So those of you who don't know what's going on, hey everybody, my name is Matt Colville. I run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign on Twitch, and we normally play on Wednesday nights, but it's been a couple months now since the last time we played because I needed a break to get the Kickstarter ready, and now it's December and people are on vacation. So we're not streaming anymore. And then we did a downtime video, which actually was really well received. I was very surprised. I wanted it to be good, but then reading the script, I was like, this is going to be one of those things. Oh yeah, sorry, body deaths. You're right. We should not. Just listening to Matt Colville talk, trust me, I know, can be really wearing. As a good friend of mine enjoys saying, a little of Matt Colville goes a long way. So let's get some State Azure going in the background just to relieve us of the monotony of my voce. Now, I can hear this, but you people can't hear this because I do not have the desktop audio turned on. That's too loud. There we go. Can you folks hear that? Did I expect King to be in charge of the chain into the future? No, but certainly Balisantrax did. Did I name Sheer, or whoever I spell chess, after the planet Fum evolved? No, what a great question, though. So now, Shipbreaker just asked a great question. James says, yeah, it's good. Okay, well, I'm going to turn it down a little bit, which means I think... So the plan, I was the lead writer on a video game called Evolve, which I am still incredibly proud of and think about all the time, and I often go back and read or reread my writing on that project because of how happy I was with it. And my actual first job at Turtle Rock Studios, hired as the lead writer, or what they would these days call a narrative director. I just thought, I'm the writer. I still think that. I'm still sort of skeptical of some of these titles, although not the people doing it. I think a lot of that title stuff comes from above and whatnot. But was working with my now good friend Phil, one of the owners. He's the art director there, so artist and writing working closely together. And he came over to my desk on my first day and said, so we've been calling this planet Planet X because we didn't know what else to call it and we need a better name. So job one, Mr. Colville, let's see what you can do. Come up with a name for this fucking planet, man. Because they've been working on the game for like a year at this point. And Colville for president. Well, I had an idea for a YouTube series, not just me doing one video, but inviting other YouTubers to follow along. Don't let me forget to talk about that, even though it's not related to anything. And so I said to Phil, this was if I did anything right in this process, it was this. I said to Phil, what kind of planet names do you like? I didn't just go away and think, well, what kind of planet names does Matt Colville like? I wanted to know, I was working for Phil, and this was part of being a professional. It's my job to make that guy happy, and I take that stuff seriously. And so I said, what kind of planet names do you like? And he goes, I think Arrakis is a cool name. That's the planet from the science fiction novel Dune, and that's speaking my language, because Dune was my favorite science fiction novel, and maybe my favorite novel for a long time. Not anymore, but it's still pretty high up there. And so I went, okay, great, no problem, thanks. That was all I needed to know. And so I went, oh, okay, how did Frank Herbert name that planet? I went and looked it up, and he named it after, the idea is that if you're close enough to Canopus, which is a real star, that which we're not, but if you were an intergalactic or interstellar human civilization from the future, and you're closer to Canopus, it twinkles in the sky, and the Arab colonists called it like Al-Rakir, meaning the dancer. And that turned into Arrakis. Over centuries, that turned into Arrakis. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And so that was, to me, a process. So I started applying that process to the world of Evolve. And I did not invent this stuff. The idea was that the first settlers on Evolve were a Chinese company called Celestial Materials Extraction and Transport. I invented the name of the company, but it was their idea that when you walk around in the world of Evolve, you're going to see layers of colonization. And it might just literally be in like the signage on the walls or posters and stuff like that. But the first settlers here were a corporation. They weren't really even settlers. They were developers. Better way of looking at it. Were developers, and they were a Chinese corporation. And then they sold the rights to develop the planet to a Russian corporation. And then they sold the rights to it. Now it's English speakers. So I said, okay, all right. So then I'm coming up with the names of these companies and what they're doing. And I said to a friend of mine who was from China, I said, what is the Chinese word for world? And he gave me a couple of options. And one of them was, and I'm almost certainly going to mispronounce it, was Shirje. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I liked the idea that over multiple generations of different people of different languages coming to develop and then eventually settle this planet, you'd be having space stations, people going down to the planet, people coming up from the planet, people of different languages talking, and the Chinese developers would say, I'm going to go down to the planet. I'm going to go down to the planet. I'm going to go down to the planet. I'm just back from the planet. But the English-speaking people did not know that that's what they were saying. When they heard this word, Shirje, they thought that was the proper name of the world, and that originally it was the English, some of the English settlers, not developers, the ones who came and bought this place and were going to live there permanently, called it Sheer Joy, because that was there, and they knew that wasn't the original name, and then it just got condensed down to Sheer. So that's where the name from Evolve came from, and that was a huge hit. That explanation was mine, but the name, I didn't walk around explaining the whole fucking thing. I just started calling the planet Sheer in the fiction I was writing, and everybody liked it, and Phil loved it. He was like, great. So that's a sign, I think, of how powerful process can be. Because my process only resembled Frank Herbert's structurally, right? He's literally thinking about, over generations, how does a name evolve? And the name of the planet in Evolve happened the same way, but for very different reasons. But the result was the same and very popular, at least with the team. The chess game that they play in my world is named Sheer because that's the name of that game that we play that we call chess. We call it chess because we inherited it from Persians, I think, who might have gotten it from India. And Shere means, I think it means like king. I think it's Persian for king or something like that. Shere Khan is the name of a character, I think, in some Rudyard Kipling thing. So maybe it's Indian, I don't know. But Sheer is what it was originally called. And chess is, I believe, a corruption of it. So I often do that in my stuff. When I want to name something in a fantasy world, I kind of start digging around on Earth, trying to find, like, the Kalian Empire is my Roman Empire analog. Very, very few people, and people just think that's a cool sounding name. It sounds real. Well, it is real. It was one of the 7 hills of Rome. It has that name. So that was a great question. I think we're done. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. Planning the heist hasn't really begun. We'll see. Thank you, Andrew Thetford. Doing again sometime soon? I don't know. It's a good question. I think we're going to switch back to D&D for a while. Did I miss anything? Did anybody say anything cool? Oh yeah, the YouTube series idea. Thank you for reminding me. I was once on an internet forum in which there was a major presidential election, and this is back when internet forums were a lot more provincial than they are now. Not as literally provincial as bulletin boards were, which was a lot of fun, but still very different than they are now, where you knew everybody, basically. It was easy to know everybody, even on a real forum, a really big forum. And there was a thread where we all ran for president. And I think, like a lot of things, because the first people who responded in that thread took it very seriously and put a lot of thought into it, and we're all from different walks of life, that's how the thread developed. And I learned a lot in that thread. I learned a lot of politics in that thread. I learned a lot of history in that thread, as different people had different priorities. And when you only have 2 political parties, you tend to only talk about a very small set of issues. Those of you who are watching who are not from America, we only have 2 political parties. We have first past the post voting, which is pretty dysfunctional. It's almost any other system is better. But as a result, we have very limited discussions. And so suddenly we are talking about all sorts of stuff that are definitely policy related. And I thought it would be really neat if for this coming election, it's not too late, by the way, but to have a YouTube runs for president. And the YouTubers I follow, some of whom I know well enough to kind of provoke and say, hey, are you interested in doing something like this? And we each just do a video, regardless of whether you're an American or not, where we say, okay, well, this is my policy and this is my platform. It worked on the forum I was on because people took it seriously, and it was not, oh, hey, Jessen, I'm happy you could catch me. Neon Kobold, it'll probably be more sessions than that. I'm not seeing the little thing, Blimey, I'm not seeing the little thing that shows me, hang on, live chat. All messages are visible? Usually at the top of the thing, it shows me when somebody throws money at us, they get a little badge that lasts for a time proportional to their thing. So if people have been throwing money at us, I apologize. Hello, Anthony Clunan. So I think Ben Carey, I think like a lot of people, obviously there are people who any political discussion upsets them because they're of a certain very narrow demographic that are on typically the outside of what would be modern consensus, and so they don't like being reminded that they're on the outside of consensus. But apart from those folks, I think it would be very interesting. I think a lot of people would learn a lot. I think the first blush reaction people would have is like, well, I don't want to hear Matt talk about politics. That's fine, don't get me wrong, but it's not like it would be a trick or anything like the YouTube, like you'd be able to see in the title is what we're doing. But when you're not part of this 2-party system, when you're just a random nobody, you're free to do a lot of your own research and you learn a lot. And so the things that are important to you, often, this is the reason I think it would be really interesting. Like if you watched Hank Green run for president or Lindsay Ellis run for president, there would be topics that you're like, I didn't know anything about this because neither of these 2 parties talk about it. And that doesn't mean it's not important. It just means that there's no 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th party. And you would learn a lot because she probably knows a lot about her pet issues, right? And I think that's fascinating. I definitely learned a lot from that thread on that one forum. So it can work, but YouTube is very different than a tiny little internet forum that nobody knows anything about. Have I read The Dark Tower? Hey, look, thank you. Skorsk. I thought I 8 hit dice scores. Where are you going? Bye. Are you leaving? Yeah, my thing worked. Must be nice. All of it. Must be nice. All done. Is Dave getting a model? When I sent an email from home, Dave. Oh, okay. All right, hey, take it easy, man. I'll see you. You're going to be here Monday? This next week's a normal week for you. Yeah. Me too. Okay, take it easy. How long have we been up? Well, I got up at about 8 o'clock in the morning, but... Oh, thank you, Jay Jolly. No, I think body deaths, like for instance, a lot of the politics of capital are drawn from modern politics. Put the shit you're interested in, stick it in your game. Why not? But I also synthesize the politics of capital are synthesized from a great many things, like the idea that the nobles in capital are essentially, they would be labeled by modern Americans as misogynistic, racist. But then you'd start digging into what they believe, and you'd be like, wait, hang on a minute, because the nobles in capital, the traditional conservative nobles in capital, are very proud of their multicultural, quasi-gender fluid city. They're very proud of it. They think that anybody should be able to move to capital and get a job and own property and get justice. This is a big deal to them. Get property is kind of like catch as catch can. They have a kind of more 1980s Republican attitude toward that, where if you're lucky and you make enough money, then sure, absolutely. But it's not like a human right or anything. But they definitely think that everybody deserves justice under the law, regardless of, you know, how you identify or where you come from and who your parents are or where you live. They just don't think that you should be able to rule. And that's a very Napoleonic attitude, right? And I like that attitude, not in the sense of I wish it were true, but I like it because it's an interesting, subtle distinction from the assumptions we have now. And there's a tendency, and this is one of the things I like about fantasy, is there's a tendency to project our current values into the past and to imagine that the way we think now, people have always thought that way. No, that's absolutely not true. And I like data mining the past and going, oh, that's a very interesting and non-modern attitude. It's kind of like I remember watching Star Trek Enterprise, which was a show I quite liked, except for this one season. It was kind of bonkers. When they had a doctor who was a really interesting non-human doctor that did not have a Hippocratic oath. This is a dude who practiced medicine and had never sworn first do no harm. And so he would espouse, he would suggest doing things that a modern doctor would be like, ah! But that he's from a different culture, and I thought that is really cool. I'm not advocating for it, but that's one of the things I like from science fiction and fantasy, is getting to see those different points of view. Marcellia Delt, Roland Jupiter 8. It's the classic 80s, one of the classic 80s synths. I've got a Jove filter, which is a kind of a knockoff of that classic fucking filter, which I love. Highland Starship Troopers. Haven't ever read the novel. I liked the movie in the context of the movie because I was a huge fan of Paul Verhoeven, and I got it as a satire of fascism, among other things. I don't really understand. Like, there's kind of a quasi. It's a cult movie now, and that surprises me. And thank you for backing the Kickstarter. I'm looking forward to getting your stuff. Adam Beaton. Hello, hi. Awesome. That makes me so happy, Adam. You have no idea. Adam shared the downtime video with their players and is excited that they're going to have their own side quests. That makes me very happy. What we just did 2 nights ago with Leech, that wasn't really a side quest. That's why I called it an interlude. This is coming back around to the beginning of the stream where I started explaining this and got derailed, but that's part of the fun of these live streams. It's not a video, it's not a scripted YouTube video we can talk about, whatever. I realize that some people don't like it when I get distracted, but thanks to chat moderation and my own faulty memory, we typically get back to where we were going. That was not, I don't consider that a downtime adventure because it certainly wasn't self-directed. It was just an interlude. It was interactive. I told Matt O'Driscoll all he knew was, you're going to be here later than everybody else. We're going to be streaming and you're going to be playing Leech. And I told him, just go along with it. Because I was worried that he would see some conflict between 2 people he didn't know and just blow it off. But I really didn't think he would. Even if I hadn't said anything, I really think that Matt O'Driscoll's instincts are so good as a player that even though maybe Leech, a drow, a senior officer now of the Chain of Acheron, would see 2 random people having a fight in the middle of the city and be like, not my problem, not my circus, not my monkeys, and just move on. But Matt O'Driscoll, the player, knows better. His instincts, his dramatic instincts are so good. But I still said, hey, just by the way, just go along with what's happening. It's going to be very monologue-y, but then it's going to get more interactive, and it did. So that's not really a downtime. I think the first downtime adventure we see might be kind of the heist is sort of a downtime adventure. But specifically, I think it'll be Judge going to go to the Tiefling ghetto, because there's a population. I don't think Anna understands how big it is, because there's a population of Tieflings in Capital that are refugees, and they are not having a good time. They're being treated very badly by the people of Capital, and Anna wants to go see what's going on there, and that's not going to go great. But the opportunity exists for her to kind of, if Judge can weather the assault and not overreact and not, then I think there are a lot of opportunities there. Somebody threw $20 at me. Player's Guide to Capital. Yep, I think it's almost done. I think the first draft of many of the writers are done, by the way. They've turned in all their stuff. And there's a couple of writers that still have some bits outstanding. And then it's my job to go through it and kind of smooth everything out. And that'll take a little while. And then it needs to get arted and laid out, but it's pretty spectacular. By the next time we stream, all of the players will have already read probably the fair draft, which is not the final draft, but first draft is the writers have submitted it and I've approved it. The fair draft is I have gone over it at least once and probably twice and turned it into uniform presentation and Matt Colville writing. And then the final draft obviously is the one we send to they will have already read the fair draft. They will be incredibly well educated on the City of Capital. And many of them are really looking forward to it. Like they've been wanting something like this for a long time. Yay, Shannon Carl. I hope they're happy. I'm trying to make it so that working for MCDM is as easy and fun as possible, but who knows? I'm a huge Kate Bush fan, Chloe. I had a giant Kate Bush poster over my bed when I was a kid, which to some people that visited me communicated something that I didn't mean it to communicate. I was just a big fan of Kate Bush. I was one of those Kate Bush fans that thought every one of her albums was better than the last one. I'm not until like Ariel and 50 Words for Snow, where things started to kind of go off the rails. But I thought Red Shoes was her best work ever. What happened with Leech? You got to go. Is it not up on YouTube? I thought it was going to be up on YouTube by now. But go to Twitch, video on demand. We played D&D Wednesday night. You missed it. There's a fire within my soul. Sorry. I just listened to a cover of... I have been listening to Josh Turner's cover of Mamma Mia by ABBA, a song I thought I would probably never hear again because what the hell. Listen, the ASD Foundation, ASDF, JKL semicolon. You gotta get some right. You have an essay. You gotta finish your essay. I said this on Twitch the other day. I realize some people who watch me are not old, and some people who watch me are in school. Some people who watch me are in college. Do not make the mistake. Like, remember that work you're doing. I know it doesn't seem like this, especially when you're in high school. It's more true in college. That work you're doing, it belongs to you. Your degree belongs to you. It's yours. You're investing in yourself. I know it doesn't feel this way, but it will definitely feel that way afterwards. And you look around at all the different people you're competing with. So don't sleep on your essay. Write that shit. Write it. Thank you, Hector. I would say base, but that's fine. I'll take it. What's the opinion to the best way to prep for a more open adventure like Curse of Strahd? I'm afraid that the best way to, when you've got a kind of sandboxy adventure, like the Chult one is pretty sandboxy. The problem with that is you really fucking got to read the whole goddamn thing. You just got to read the whole fucking thing and just basically commit it to memory, because you never know what choices your player is going to make or where they're going to go or what they're going to do. And that's always a pain in the ass. And my attitude is, if you're going to do that, you might as well just roll your own and make your own adventure. Linear adventures, pre-written adventures are fun to buy and read, because someone, like, typically I did a whole video on this, although it might be worth revisiting, where I will like read the first couple pages and then I'll go read the last few pages so I know what the setup is. In fact, one of the writers for the Player's Guide to Capital basically got hired because when I was reading their stuff, right up at the beginning of their adventure, they wrote the villain. Here's who the bad guy is and what they're trying to do. And I went, you are an MCDM writer. Everything else I did was really, really good. So it wasn't literally just that one bit, but that's what I like about linear adventures. I can read the beginning and I can read the end and I go, got it. And then from that point forward, I can just read the next bit. And you'll, it's not literally just I read the next bit before I run. I've got the book in the bathroom and I'm skimming through it and going back and forth. And I'm like, oh, who's this lich and living in the middle? Who's this druid lich living in the middle of the forest? Let's read about this person, so that I can seed that stuff moving forward. But typically a good adventure, especially a linear adventure, that stuff is seeded by the author and you don't need to do it. I don't need to know who this guy is that they just got this letter from, because they don't know either. They just got the letter and now I can go home and look it up after. So that's the problem with an open world adventure. It can be a lot more satisfying and a lot more dynamic, very dynamic, but it's more work. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna try and there's no magic bullet for that kind of thing. I mentioned this before in the thing. I ran a very open world sandboxy game, and the way I did it was I just prepped 5 different adventures and seeded them in this local area. That was a lot of work, but it was super awesome. Ooh, the main squeeze. I love those guys. Opinion on Dark Sun, one of my favorite settings. Modular-ish, yeah, Jacob, or Jacob, yeah, it's the chapters in Red Hand of Doom are very kind of, they give good opportunities for downtime. Martin V, you would love to see my Spotify Top 100 playlist. Well, unfortunately, my Spotify Top 100 we can listen to some of it right now. I can do that if I want to. Oh, but then I won't want to get boned. We've had really good luck listening to music on Twitch without anybody trying to censor me. I don't really know how to see my top 100, but we can listen to a little bit of a song I just discovered. Oh, this is live? No, Vic. I recorded this a couple days ago. Why is my microphone? Poland, I have bought some modules. Ian, I bought some modules from people in your country. All right. Let's make sure I'm answering everybody's question. Yes. Bjorn, thank you for the cash, Bjorn. Players Guide to Capital, I talked about you. Spotify Top 100. I don't want to say what it is. I want to play it because it's super amazing. And we can do that in a live stream. I can say, hey, you want to hang out, listen to some music? It's just like a minute and a half, not the whole song. IDM, I enable my players to explore setting, but we keep breaking it. How do you run a limited setting without the implication of strong forces like Wish? I mean, I don't ever... so Paul Balog, you're missing an R in your last name. I have never run a game, maybe once ever, where my players ever got anywhere near having that kind of power. So I think there's a tendency among new players who get really excited to be like, why don't we just run a game at 17th level? Well, there's a reason like only probably less than 3% of actual in-play D&D games ever get that far. So start small and build up. Actually just playing D&D at first level can be a lot of fun. A lot of fun because you've never done it before. And I pride myself on my ability to make a kobold or a goblin feel like this horrible, awful alien entity that has its own culture and it terrorizes the town and stuff like that, and recontextualize some of these things the players probably feel like they already know about. That's the challenge, is taking that stuff and making it fun and new and feel new and fresh, as opposed to just, if you could start at any level in World of Warcraft and you just always started at max level, you would get quickly bored because there's all this content that you missed. Well, Pat I'm a little bit hesitant to out the authors just because when the book comes out and their names are on it, then everybody will be able to see. But until then, I don't want people to be judging the stuff that we're previewing based on who the writer is. So it's up to them if they want to talk about it on Twitter, which some of them do, some of them don't. And I respect that. Well, this is my first time seeing you, Stephen Kors. Well, lots of people have bad thoughts about me the first time most of my favorite people, that's not as much true in the past couple of years, like the past 10 years, but all through high school and college, and even in my first couple jobs, all my best friends were people that thought I was an enormous cockbag when they first met me. So you're in good company. Enoch Romero, I think that is a question that is beyond the scope of this chat. Dr. Basil Doctor, thank you. Thank you for the cache. Your help, your effort helps keep the lights on, the doors open. Everything counts. Stephen Kors, did you throw 10 Canadian dollars in there? Did you ask the same question twice for two different monies? Any news on Fighter? I have not really worked on Fighter at all. Demon Slayer says, hey Matt, could you say hi to my buddy Matt Johnson for me? Hello, Matt. Hi, hey, how's it going? Demon Slayer, the only reason I said that like that is because often when I literally, but only in YouTube chat, people will often try to, random people come in and they try to troll you by getting it. So I got to parse the sentence carefully. So, cool, he's live. No, you're live. Sorkstan. Opinion on Pathfinder. I do not have one. How does one make a player fall in love with an NPC? Do you mean like literally romantic love? That's tricky. It's not impossible. I mean, it can't hurt to go find an illustration, a picture online or an actor or something that you think, I'm not playing Bad Splur. I'm an observer. What time is it here? It's 8:15 on Friday evening. Jan, in the Czech Republic. Do I have any Czech Republic modules? I don't think I do. I definitely have the Odessa is a Polish module, I believe. Hello, Ashley. It's a great name, Ashley Tealeaf. Great classic halfling name. Do I collect real arms and armor? Well, I've got 2 arms. those are enough so far. I wouldn't know what to do with others. Well, Clouds, I think we're probably going to migrate from YouTube, from Twitch to YouTube, not anytime soon, but probably book two of the chain, which I anticipate being like June or July, will probably be on YouTube. What the hell? Another question from Stephen Course. You don't have to throw money just to ask a question. I try to answer questions from everybody if I can, although throwing money does get my attention. As a DM, what do I recommend for the heartbreak DMs? I get players into the game and they want to go make their own groups. I mean, yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. You know, maybe the issue is you find people that you just like playing games with and like playing games with you, and you don't play D&D at first, and you get that group consistently built up. And then once you're like, these people and I gel together, then you start playing D&D. I know this is super personal, and not applicable to everybody, to all groups. But my life has always been about building friends, playing games with friends, using games to make friends, and then that group playing Dungeons and Dragons. Not, hey, let's all play D&D. No, let's get together, play Bang. Hey, we're gonna play Time Cop. We're gonna play not Time Cop. It's the guys that make Flux. We're gonna play Chrononauts, and you seem like a likely person, so you're in. And then once you have that group, then you introduce D&D, because D&D is too complex and too much effort to just run every week for the rest of your life. You need to do other stuff with your friends, with that group. So that's the best advice I can give you. Do I still host random groups? I've never done that. Not to the best of my knowledge, the smiley virus. There are definitely nerds in Oklahoma. The closer you get to Wisconsin, the greater the density of nerd per capita. That's a true fact. What's the ultimate fantasy I want fulfilled while playing a character in Star? I don't know we're going to get deep into Star Citizen, but although I'm pretty close to pulling the trigger on Star Citizen, probably 3.8 is going to be it. I don't know. I just I don't have that. One of the reasons I think I love what I see from Star Citizen is that I love the depth and breadth of what they're trying to do, and the core fantasy of just being a star pilot. Everything else seems really cool to me. None of it is make or break for me. It's not like, oh man, I've always wanted to be a medic in a game. No, that would be cool. I like that one guy that bought a huge capital ship, and all the modules in it are medic modules, so he made a med ship. I thought that's super cool. I don't think that gameplay exists yet, so I want to try it all. You know, it's like World of Warcraft. I knew nothing about that. I jumped into it and I'm like, I like all these classes, I like all these different species, I want to play all of them. And ultimately I did. I had you know, every combination of race and class almost in my World of Warcraft past. Rockshay, hello. Well, Aaron Roblox, aka Robok, aka Rockshay from Twitch, says, hey, some of us will follow you wherever you go. Well, in point of fact, the reason we're talking about leaving Twitch at some point in the distant, 6, 7, 8 months from now, is just because only like 13 to 15% of our viewers watch anything else on Twitch in a given month, which tells us a whole bunch of Matt Colville fans from YouTube are coming to Twitch. And many of them don't like it. And a lot of YouTubers don't. They just are like, I don't want to go to Twitch. Screw that. And Twitch doesn't really care about us. We're not what we do. Stuff like, MCDM Plays, where we do board games, which has been a huge success as far as I'm concerned, and just a ton of fun. And MCDM Presents, which is our premier live product. And even these Hangouts. None of the stuff. There's no one doing what we're doing on the front page of Twitch. And that sends a message to the rest of us. We're not, and the folks at Twitch don't do anything to promote us or reach out to us. So our audience is on YouTube. Let's just hang out on YouTube. That's probably the future. Braveheart says, I'm an amazing and thought-provoking content creator. Well, I think you're an amazing and provoking chat member. That makes me, this is my legacy, is people are going to play D&D, hopefully. People, long after I'm dead, people will be learning how to play D&D from my videos, I hope. Fingers crossed. Well, Caleb Faust is a classic problem. Caleb has 2 players, both playing Warlocks. One has significantly better stats. This is a problem. the weaker one feels like their patron isn't giving them enough variety. How do I remedy this? There's a million things you can do. You can give them a cool title. Like, remember, Graves was the empty one. It made him, unfortunately, I don't think Phil really got to benefit from this because we stopped playing that campaign, but they were going to be facing off against like an army of aboleths and all sorts of psychic powers and lots of illithids and stuff. And so being immune to that stuff and being able to know what they were thinking, and he had other abilities he didn't really get to tap into, was really cool. And he did think it was cool, but he was jealous that other people had cooler stuff. And I was like, well, his stuff is going to become super important soon. But magic items, special abilities, titles, which is another way of like, maybe, you think of like feats. You have a lot of things you could do to give that player something and bring them. To me, that's the fun part. I love that stuff. Godhunter6789, I think they're very, very nice of you. I think we're probably going to do something like, I'm probably going to get these folks into Star Citizen. We're all going to learn the game, and then we're going to start multi-streaming it, like all of us playing at once. So just to show, like, is this game fun to play for somebody who's just gotten started? I have not, Shane DZ. It's not really on my list of stuff that I'm jonesing for. The list of games that I'm interested in playing, we've talked about this before on Twitch. Numenera, Mothership, Fall of Delta Green, very interested in. Not really, Caleb. No, I still haven't. None of my players has asked to play one. That's the thing, is my players, I think maybe because I'm their DM, my players tend to be like, none of them look at the Unearthed Arcana. They're still super focused on the player's handbook and what can be done. And they watch each other play different cool stuff. And they're like, that's cool. I want to play one of them next time. 40,000 words. That's quite a lot, Zabsher. That's a goodly chunk. That's real. That's real. Don't go back and reread what you wrote. Keep writing till you're done. Then go back and reread it. Because going back and rereading the stuff you wrote gives you kind of some juice, and and you need juice to keep going. Cam Cakes. Unfortunately, so Cam Cakes' question is, that's a good question, Shipbreaker. If I had to make up a 5th edition class on the spot, what would I make? I know the answer to that. We're kind of getting close to being done with the Illrigger, I think. There's still a lot of testing and tweaking to do, but I don't think there's going to be any major revisions. I think it'll probably go to the Discord next week. It'll be 1.5, I think. Even then, I just added a couple new abilities that are going to be really controversial and maybe need to be toned back or cut. That's fine. That's the process. But I already have ideas for having done a class once from scratch and gone from being happy with its homebrew nature. I feel like it's dark in here because, hang on. Sorry. There we go. I was very happy with the Illrigger's homebrew nature. It represented my attitude toward 5th edition design, my personal attitude toward 5th edition design. But then, as people wanted to use it, I was like, well, I didn't feel entirely comfortable with people using it outside my table just because unless you agree with my attitude toward 5th edition design, it's dangerous. You could break your game or upset your players because they could be like, what's going on with this thing? So then the past couple of months of me working on the Illrigger when I can has been the process of Colvilleizing it and kind of trying to turn it into a legit 5th edition. Like, for instance, a lot of the Illrigger's abilities are front-loaded because I just don't think players get past 9th level very often. So rather than say, look at all this cool shit you're never going to get to use, I crunched down the progression, which isn't balanced. It's by no means balanced. But I thought, this is better. Well, okay, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But if a Dungeon Master wants to use this class, or a player wants to use this class, it's my responsibility to kind of make it conform to the 5th edition norms, even the ones I don't agree with, so that they don't get angry and upset because they're going to expect it to conform to those norms. So that's what we've been doing. We've been going through and kind of like smoothing it out and making it more reasonable. Still cool, and still probably a little unbalanced and fun homebrewy ways you would expect it to be, but not game-breakingly so. There's a difference between being unbalanced and being broken. And then I think we might move on to another class. And I have an idea for it because there's a very popular homebrew class that lots of people have asked for, and they've kind of danced around and different people have taken different shots at, not the Artificer, that I'm interested in doing. And so, I did a little bit of work over the weekend on this class, on the basic premise of how would it work. And talked to Lars about it, and he's basically on board. And as far Lars is concerned, as long as it doesn't cut into getting Kingdoms of Warfare done, and this is something I'm probably going to be working on over the break. But I'm not going to say what it is because it's super loaded. Once people know, I'd rather just design it and put it in front of testers and get some feedback and then talk about it to the public, because it's everybody's got their own ideas about how this class should work, and I don't want to fight with those people. I want to give them something to react to. How do you run with limited time? 3 times a month, 4 hours, 3 times a month? Playing 3 times a month, drop the lowest, sounds like a lot to me. I know a lot of people that only run twice a month. 4 hours per session, that's 12 hours of D&D a month. That's more D&D a month than most Americans spend going to the movies. That's a lot. That seems like a lot to me. What do I think is the most elegant aspect of the 5e rules? I think 5e is very elegant. I love the flattened math. I love, even though I kind of chafe against it every once in a while, I love advantage and disadvantage and how simple it is. And there's a bunch of stuff in it that I like. I like 5th edition quite a lot. I've never been as the degree of unhappiness I have for 5th edition is the least I think I've ever had with any edition since I kind of started having opinions about this stuff. If that makes any sense. Oh, that's awesome, Smiley Virus. It was my favorite too. Will the Illrigger have an organization? That's a good question, Dr. Basil Doctor. Maybe. I might. People have been asking, is the Illrigger going to be in Kingdoms of Warfare? And I'm always surprised by that. I'm like, no, why would it be? It's Kingdoms of Warfare, not Kingdoms of Warfare and Illriggers. But I think we could definitely present. This is what we could do. We could present. So there are 3 specialties of Illrigger, right? There's the Shadow Master, the Painkiller, and the Architect of Ruin. We could introduce a 4th that was explicitly for if you're going to be playing in a campaign that uses the warfare rules. Let's give you some juice that makes you a better battlefield commander. That would make sense. And in which case, yeah, we would do that. But that's super conjectural. I can't commit to that right now. I can't commit to that. Shane DZ. Well, Shane DZ says it would be great to get a horror tips video from me. I don't know that I know anything about how to run a horror game. So, in my campaign, the gods are dead. That sounds cool. Killing your 20th level players in the final fight after a 3-year campaign to make them gods. As long as they understand the stakes and as long as it's opt-in and you don't just pull the rug out from underneath them. Players don't mind if their characters die. They mind when their characters die in undramatic ways or ways that they feel like were for reasons they didn't have any control over. In fact, in my experience, players love having a dramatic. I remember my friend Craig said, I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna hold this bridge against this army. You guys get out of here. I'm gonna buy you the time you need to get out. That was fucking cool, man. Still cool. So players don't mind it when their characters die. They want a dramatic death that has meaning, and ideally they want to have context for it while it's happening. They want to opt in. So if you give them that, then I think they're going to fall for it. I have a couple players who keep wanting to switch characters. What are some things I can do to help them invest in a character? Oh, I don't think there's anything wrong with switching characters. The problem is, I don't know. Remember when Boots has always been a bard. Switching classes is different from switching characters. I guess if your players are constantly just getting bored with their character, not the class is a bad fit for them, and they want to switch classes but be the same character, a la Boots. That means you should. This is going to sound incredibly harsh, but hey, everybody, Matt Colville here. Probably shouldn't be playing RPGs. You should probably be playing Descent or something like that. Be a lot easier on you, almost as fun, not as meaningful. But then the players don't get, if someone's constantly like, I want to play a new character, and they're getting bored of a character after only having played it once or twice, that probably means that they're just not that into this hobby. There's no moral imperative to play D&D or like it. And people will say yes, and they'll go along with it because they're your friend, and it seems important to you. It's your responsibility to pay attention to not only the things they say, but the things they don't say. And imagine them complexly and think about, why are they doing this? What would be my motivation if I was acting like that? Oh, probably because I wasn't really down for this. And it's just, you're like, you're heartbreaking. Oh, but I really want them to love this thing. Well, that's, 100%, but they're not obligated to. And so if they're constantly switching characters, not just, I want to tweak this or this isn't working for me, but they just get bored and just want to make new characters, that's probably because they want something. If they're having fun in D&D, if they're having fun, it's because they want something different from the game than what you want. There's a misalignment. Jason Terry, I'm not incredibly... Jason Terry asks if we're ever going to release some stuff on the DMs Guild. I don't think so. Just because the DMs Guild is an amazing resource for homebrew writers and creators who want a larger audience and maybe monetize their stuff. That's what it's for. That's not us. And the terms, the DMs Guild terms, while I think great for somebody who does not have a lot of experience or a large audience and is looking for those two things and get the opportunity to monetize it in the process, awesome. But for somebody like us, the terms are not great. Would I deny a character a magic item based on their ancestry? I picked human, so no dark vision, but my DM says I will not get dark vision goggles because I chose human, so I should deal with the flaw. What a great question, Matthew Rogers. I hope you guys understood this. You chose human. Humans don't have dark vision. But you want dark vision, so you're like, I would be cool to get glasses of dark vision. And your DM's like, well, if you want a dark vision, then you should have played this other ancestry that gets it. I think, I mean, my first blush reaction is that DM should be playing a different game. Not in the sense of don't play role-playing games, go play Talisman. Not that advice. But there are other games, and I don't know what they're called now, but they used to be called GURPS and Champions, and there's always an RPG out this like there somewhere, where you don't build your character by rolling dice or buying stats per se. You spend points to buy abilities. Dark vision costs this much. There are lots of games like that out there. Those games tend to have, like Deadlands had this. Deadlands is fucking awesome. Deadlands had, perks and flaws, and perks cost points, but flaws cost negative points. So if you took this flaw, you got more points to spend on perks. Very classic design. What your DM is saying is language from those games, because they will tell the dungeon master, the game will say, if a flaw is worth points, then the player has to play that flaw. A flaw that doesn't in any way inconvenience your character isn't worth any points. Right? Now, hopefully that is not a controversial statement. That should be a relatively straightforward statement. You may not agree with that design, but if you accept that design as a premise, that we have perks and flaws, and you can go negative if you want to, and then you're going to get more points later, then that makes perfect sense. D&D is not that game. Dark vision no dark vision is not a flaw, right? So it's perfectly reasonable for you to hope and expect and lobby your dungeon master for items that, in fact, in earlier editions of the game, 4th edition, one of the things I didn't like about 4th edition was the DM didn't even really award magic items. Like, if the DM awarded magic items and you didn't like them, you could literally melt them down into magic goop and make the magic item you wanted. So, that being true, the advice to the DM was, just ask the players what they want and give it to them, because they have the tools in the game to melt down what you give them and turn it into what they wanted in the first place. So there's nothing wrong with saying I want dark vision goggles. And here's the best answer to I want dark vision goggles is, well, I mean, you go talk to the right people, and I'm sure they're around here somewhere. What are you willing to do to get them? Side quest. Perfect. Perfect side quest. Go show them the video. But that attitude of you don't get dark vision because you picked a human and you got to live with your flaws, that's not D&D. That's not D&D design. There are other games that are like that. That sounds like your DM might like those games better. That's not me being facetious or being sarcastic, being literally true. It's sincere advice. Hey, K Weaver, welcome to YouTube. Thank you. I will tell them. Dexterity Barbarian, you wrote something and chat is trying to hide it from me, but unfortunately, I apologize. It's my fault. The chat's going by too fast. I'm not able to parse it. Hey, it's Ash. Yay. Have a good night, Ash. Would I play even a little on a medieval Wild West merge campaign? If you're asking, would I run a game that was kind of medieval fantasy plus Wild West? I absolutely would. I don't have an RPG in front of me that is like that. If you mean would I play it as a player in somebody else's game like that? Sure, that sounds great. There are lots of, like, Dead World Under a Black Star is going to be more science fictional, but it's definitely going to be fantastical. It's definitely going to have its spells in it and fantasy, but also gunslingers, and it's going to be a really strong Wild West vibe. Quick tips on pacing. Pacing! Caleb Stallworth. What are my quick tips on pacing? Well, I did a whole video on this called the B plot, where the trick with pacing is to have multiple threads that the party is dealing with, so that if you got hung up on something and the party isn't making progress on it, you, the dungeon master, can raise the specter of this other thing they've been dealing with for a while and maybe forgot about. And there are dozens of examples in my campaigns that we streamed and talked about, but and you can go find videos about it. And that's a great way to make it so it always feels like the pressure's on. I remember Anna said, in your game, it always feels like we are just under, like there's so much time pressure, and I create that. It's an illusion. There isn't time pressure. It's a purely illusion, but it's an illusion I want to create. So I was happy to hear her say that. And that's because of the fact that I'm always able to shift gears from one challenge to another. Not always the most important thing. Some things are personal, some things are local, and you can kind of push them to the forward. And ultimately, if pacing is an issue, orcs attack. Oh, Jude McAndrews. Yeah, I can put that up on Patreon. No, I don't know if I should, though, because Pilar's a burrito. I don't know if I should. There's a lot of like spoilery nonsense. Really, there's very little difference between my notes, which is what would be on Patreon, and the recap. Very little, the very few things didn't happen. And those things, I want to keep them to myself. Although, those of you who are patrons, Bot Matrix, do I run a hex-based game where movement is actually measured out, or do I prefer to just sketch the space? Well, Bot Matrix, if I understand what you're asking, do I do theater of the mind? Hex-based is a very interesting way. I'm going to guess that you're not an American. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Quite the contrary. I like running on a grid. I would prefer a hex grid, but unfortunately human buildings are not built to a hex grid, and that makes it somewhat difficult. I run to a grid. I don't like ambiguity. I don't think players like it either. Unless you're all a bunch of theater nerds and it's not a combat heavy game, and there are lots of games that are not combat heavy, but D&D, an entire third of the book, an entire third of the core rules is nothing but monsters. And another third of it is almost nothing but ways to fight monsters. The Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual. So in a game like that, I don't think players like ambiguity. We never did. We played on a grid in 1985, and that was not unusual, although a lot of people didn't. So I always like that. The bastard. Well, I love you, you bastard. I also am looking forward to Kingdoms of Warfare. Am I spiritual in any definition? Well, I've got 2 ears and a soul. Any news on any future world building streams? Not off the top of my head. TD Hickman asks how much prep I do before a session. It varies. Sometimes, if I'm running a module, an adventure, a pre-published adventure that I didn't write, that I didn't invent, usually only a couple hours, like maybe 2 or 3 hours. Usually I can like when I was at Turtle Rock or Pandemic, I could just stop working at 4 in the afternoon and spend a couple hours getting ready for the next campaign session. But when I'm doing it all myself, it might take as much as 3 days, which is one of the reasons the Chain of Acheron was such an intense burden. Running that game nonstop for 28 weeks or whatever it was pretty difficult. Once the camera was on and we were playing, I was having fun. But I was, up until that, especially the day of the show, I was often miserable. Nightbot seems to be kind of doing his job. Oh, there are too many answers to that, Pizza Rune 5. On the interview set, I'm not super happy with the interview set, although I think we can make it something that I'm happier with. But we did an interview with Dale on that set. We did an interview with Phil on the main set, and I thought the interview with Phil looked a lot better. So the question is, how do we get the... Matthew Rogers, maybe. I don't know. Unfortunately, Mike, so sometimes if you ever, this is not always true, but if you ever hear me answer a question without calling out what the question is, it's usually because I'm trying to answer this person's question I don't want to read it because maybe they're asking about a video game that I have an opinion on, but I don't want to upset anybody that loves that game or people that work on that game that may be following me. So that's a really simple example, but some people ask and I'll be like, no, I'm not really into that. And I'll move on or whatever. And that frustrates some people who watch because they're like, wait, what was the question? But that was something I did on purpose because I wanted to give that person an answer. I didn't just want to blow them off, but at the same time, I didn't want to start espousing opinions, personal opinions about other people who might take it poorly. So side stories for other members of the chain. I don't know that side story thing really worked out. So I'm not sure that stream was successful, but maybe. What type of prep do I do for games? Well, Darth Hawthorne, in earlier running the game videos, there are links to my notes and you can just read them. And that's how much work I did. I wrote that document. Sometimes it's 1 page, sometimes it's 5 or 6. If you want kind of the modern version of that, that's what our Patreon's for. The patrons get access to all my notes, almost all my notes. So we've only been streaming for about an hour. And we're going to stream for at least another half an hour, maybe another hour. I don't know I think Ellison probably is still trapped in the abyss. He's going to stay down there until somebody goes and rescues him. But I don't think, do I think MCDM is suitably democratic? That's a good question. Well, I'm not the best person to ask, Benjamin Arnold. You'd have to ask the people that work here. And you'd have to ask them in private, buy them a beer. And even then, they probably wouldn't tell you the truth because they don't know you. I will tell you that, especially with Jason, there are many times where... Can I talk about this without anybody getting upset at me? Probably. So there was something Jason wanted to show off on our website. Something I was very opposed to it. Oh, I can talk about this. Yeah, you guys. I don't think anybody will get upset at me. So we have a really well painted version of the original Gemstone Dragons. They're gorgeous. They're painted to like a catalog level, right? Not even display this in a case or go enter it into a contest and win an award. A level above that. Like if you were going to have an MCDM catalog where you ordered stuff, this is the paint job for that. Not the current stuff in Kingdoms of Warfare, the original Gemstone Dragons. And they're gorgeous. And Jason wants to put that stuff up on our website. Well, first of all, our website's not awesome right now. Our presence online is very kind of higgledy-piggledy. But assuming that we would eventually have some kind of consolidated web presence, he wants that stuff featured on the website, like on the banner, like a rotating pictures of stuff like art from the book, just a lot. You know what I'm talking about. And I was very firmly opposed to that. I said no because you can't buy these fucking things. I don't want to show them off. We said they're Kickstarter exclusive. You can't buy them. All we're going to do. And he was like, but there's something we've done and we should be proud of. And he and I were at loggerheads about this. And I'm always worried when I have a discussion like this. I don't know that I have to be because it's never really come down to it. But my concern is always that people are going to think that I'm putting my foot down. It's my company. I could put my foot down if I wanted to. But even though we had a big argument about this, I said, here's the thing, Jason. It's your art. And you're the art. I mean, not literally your art. He's the art director. You're the art director. This is the miniatures of your department. And you're really proud of this stuff and you want to show it off. So if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm just telling you right now, it means disappointing a lot of people because they're going to see it on the website. They're going to get excited, especially if they lack context. They don't know about that first Kickstarter. We have new people discovering us every day. And they're going to go, ooh, I want that. Click. Sorry. And I don't want to disappoint people. And he went, well, that makes sense. And he hadn't thought about it that way before. But it's still his decision as far as I'm concerned. You got to learn when you're in my role what things to put your foot down about. Almost every person that works here I've had some knockdown, drag out fight with regarding how they run their department. And my attitude being, we don't need to do this, or this is the wrong way to do it. And every instance, well, I should say that's not true. There are definitely times when I said, we're not doing this. But every person has had at least one instance with that person where there was a big fight, and then I went and I thought about it, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what was the point of hiring this person if not to let them do their job and trust them? And so the next day, I would go to that person and say, you know what? I said my piece, but you're the expert. So do it how you want. And if you want to do it in the way that I don't think is a good idea, that's fine. I'll support you. I'll support you. And so far, everything's been okay. Is God granting powers to a non-religious class a good idea? Sure, as long as they're doing their thing. As long I don't do the gods really care. Like if you do something that's meaningfully important to the world and is in accord with the gods' hopes and dreams and expectations, why wouldn't they reward you even if you've Well, that's one of the reasons I love working with Jason, is that Jason and I can have real arguments about stuff and feel very strongly about it, and an hour later, just move, So I think, I hate to tell you folks this because you're not going to like it. You're not going to like it, but I gotta live within my means. I think we're done with the campaign diaries. I don't think we're going to do any more campaign diaries. It's too much work. It's incredibly bad bang for buck. I know for a lot of people, the only opportunity they have to follow the chain is my campaign diaries. And I've gone back and forth on this. This isn't the first time I've quit on the campaign diaries and then just got tired of people saying, hey, when's the next? And go, okay, fine, and do it. But the reality is there's too much stuff I want to do, and producing another video on top of running the game every week. I mean, literally running D&D every week. The idea of having to produce a whole other video on top of that. I know it's just me talking to a camera, but it's still a lot of work. Just getting into the headspace to do another video and organizing all my thoughts and trying to remember everything and trying to remember, it's exhausting, and it basically wipes me out for an entire day. So, yeah, I think we're going to go back. And here's one of the things that really bugs me about the campaign diaries. It's never not bugged me. And so that's one of the reasons we're stopping, is that I do these fucking videos because I want to make sure that people are getting the behind the scenes nonsense, which, by the way, I think by any reasonable definition, you have seen enough behind this. Anybody who wants to know how Matt runs D&D and how Matt thinks about stuff can find that out now, because we did campaign diaries for, the last 2 campaigns. But the problem is I'll release a campaign diary and people will be like, man, I missed the days when running the game was this, that, and the other thing. And now all I get is this bullshit. And I'm like, these videos are more important than running the game. These are my actual experience behind the screen. And every campaign diary has much greater density of valuable wisdom and experience, because it's literally what happened and what I learned from it. And people don't watch, and they don't care, and they unsubscribe because it's not running the game. And so what we should be doing, and what I plan on doing, is if something happens in a given episode that I think is an important lesson that I have learned, or I discover that people watching the game are freaking out about something that I didn't realize people didn't know about, that these are good reasons to now do a running the game video. For instance, we did a interlude on Wednesday night with me and Matt O'Driscoll playing Leech. And a lot of people watched it, and a lot of people were like, this is really cool. I am immediately, you go look in the Discord, I'm not making this up. People were like, I'm doing this this week in my game because this is fucking cool. I never occurred to me to do something like this before. This is neat. Okay, cool, that makes me happy. But then there are other people who lack context for this, and they'll be like, I don't like this. It feels very, no one has said this, or at least if they have, I didn't see them, but people will think this. Seems very Deus Ex Machina, like Matt's frustrated with the players and they're not figuring out the stuff they need to figure out, so he had a god show up and just explain everything to him. And that is a reasonable conclusion to make, although I think that it is ahistorical, and it also misunderstands what Deus Ex Machina means. Deus Ex Machina is I wrote myself into a corner. I'm not a great writer yet, and now my players are in a jam, and there's no way to get them out, so I'm just going to have a god show up and fix everything in a very implausible way. Well, that's not what happened on Wednesday night, but you don't have context for this, so I want to do a running the game video. It's probably going to be not the next running the game video, but the one after that is going to be about gods and oracles in a fantasy world. Because I don't think most dungeon masters really have time to think about some of this stuff. But if there are clerics and warlocks, and the gods and powers are real, the gods have much, much greater power than the mortals. These are all logical statements. This is a syllogism, sort of. The gods have enormous power. Maybe not omnipotent power, but enormous power. They have enough power that they are able to grant their thousands of worshippers all of these spells and abilities. And they have wants and desires. Gods represent each god represents a different ethos. And if you are a paladin or a cleric and you don't follow that ethos, you risk upsetting your god. So what does this mean? The gods exist, they have enormous power, and they have desire and will. But if you're running D&D, almost certainly you take these things as axioms in your campaign, even if you haven't consciously thought about it. And yet the gods aren't walking around fighting on Earth with mortals just cowering in the corner, wondering what the hell's going on as lightning bolts fly across the sky and the stars turn black and all this nonsense. Why? If these things are true in your game, and they must be because you have clerics and warlocks and paladins in your game, if the gods are real and they grant their worshippers powers and they only do it if you meet certain criteria and behave a certain way, and therefore they want certain things, why don't they just show up on Earth and enact their will directly? Well, there must be some kind of barrier preventing them. There must be some kind of, I can get my prayers through to you, but there must be, I'm constrained somehow. I as a god am constrained somehow from enacting my will on the mortal plane, the prime material plane. So what you saw Wednesday night is how I contextualize that notion of there are rules. Matt Colville does not explain what the rules are or what's preventing the gods from just, but if you watch that interlude, you go, oh yeah, the gods can't just, they can't just act however they want. Maybe there are actual physical laws of the universe preventing them from doing it, or maybe it's we've all agreed to these rules and it's just consensus. Both are possible. Maybe something in between. But these things must be true. These things must be, logically, they must be true. This is how I contextualize that truth in my game. I think it's neat. I think it's one of the reasons that we run fantasy, is that you can do stuff like that. So in everything I do, the gods show up every once in a while to kind of try to help. If you read my first novel, Priest, Hayden meets a saint, and she does her best to try to get Hayden to just pay attention to what the hell's going on around him. And he can't do it. He's so in the wasteland. He's so deep in the wasteland that he can't see it and he can't hear her, and he loses. Spoilers. And it happens again in the next book, although it's a different saint. So that's and plus one of my favorite series is the Belgariad. And even though I don't think that series is incredibly woke, I still have a lot of affection for it. I still enjoy reading it. And there's a lot of, every 60 pages or so, an omnipotent god shows up and makes sure the players are doing the right thing. And the readers like that. That gives them this sense of security and makes them happy that the world makes sense. And the characters get frustrated by it. But so there's a lot of stuff like that in my world. Also, the Thomas Covenant books had a big impact on me. Thomas Covenant is like the leech of that world. Like the gods chose him and sent him down. They're like, now he's the best we could do. Who knows what's going to happen? We might all be screwed and the world's going to end, but we can't act directly. Anyway, so that's a running the game video, which you just heard the premiere for, I should say the preview for. That's a running the game video predicated on a D&D game. That's how I want to it's going to be a regular everyday running the game video with a script on the set, and it's not literally just going to be me telling you what happened, but it's going to be inspired by the events that happen in the game, because that way I get to make the content that people want and the content I want, which is talking about what happened in the game, but in a context that is more broadly applicable. So now I gotta read chat and see all these unhappy people. Glory, Marcus Milton. What's wrong with a character wanting glory? I want to come back with medals on my shoulder. I want to come back and have all the folks at home remember me in a... Joe, there's nothing stopping other people from recapping my stuff. Maybe some enterprising YouTuber will start doing, but they can't give you my perspective, which is I think what folks want. If you just want to recap, our mods normally carry P, but other mods pinch hit every once in a while. Our mods do a recap. If you don't want to watch 23 minutes of D&D from Wednesday night, you can just go read a document that says here's literally what happened. And they do a really good job, and it's a lot of work. I do, Pally, all my videos are about that, I think. Sussy Minion, I love you. I don't know you, Sussy Minion, but I love you. Well, Michael Scarborough, I agree, but nobody watched them, and it upsets me. Not only did nobody watch them, then they got the people who watched it, then all people did was complain. That's not literally true, I'm exaggerating, but a lot of people complain, and I just get tired of that. I get tired of people being like, how did I pick out Vince's tie? He loves his tie. He never tries to take it off. I think he just knows that it's business time. He's in the office. He's business cat. A very frisky cat. Ooh. So yeah, I know you like the recaps. We'll always, if something happens in a game that makes me go, oh, the people need to know about this, we'll still do it. It's just going to be a running the game video, and that'll make everybody happy. It won't make everybody happy. I can't make everybody happy, but it's a lot of work and it pisses people off. So no, my Kate Bush poster was, no, Babushka is quite a lot earlier than my fandom for Kate Bush. My Kate Bush poster was the Sensual World. Yeah. Well, Peter, listen to the D&D stream. We streamed D&D. He does. That's true. Scott Hall, it's correct. When we play Axis and Allies on YouTube, well, I'll tell you that with Jerry's help, we've streamed games that I never thought the Twitch audience would be down for. But we've made it work, and I quite successfully. I'm incredibly happy with it's one of those things where it doesn't really matter to me if people are watching or not, but I'm incredibly happy with the quality of the presentation of our Wednesday night non-D&D games. Jerry has done an enormous job, and it makes me incredibly happy. Do I have any Kate Bush vinyl? Yeah, I've got the concert she did, like that five album London concert she did on vinyl, and I've got Ariel on vinyl, and I've got her Cold War album is what I think of it as. The Ninth Wave is what I listen to when I listen to it, but it's Hounds of Love. Twilight Imperium is on the docket. I don't know if we'll play it. Vapad, I was in LA hanging out with that person earlier today. The little gray cells. William Franklin, I think that's a great idea. Why does Explicitica Defilis have to be a Naga? No reason. Absolutely could be a Medusa. Absolutely. And a Medusa who thinks that she's a god? Why wouldn't? Absolutely, 100%. And here's the thing, William Franklin, even if I thought that was a stupid idea, which I don't, the fact that you think it's a good idea is all that it takes. Work on the stuff that inspires you. If you ever have writer's block and you're like, man, I'm on the hook to do this and I don't want to, that's because it's not a failure of yours. It's because it's not cool enough. You're not excited enough. What are you excited by? Put that in the content. Write about that. Prep that adventure, and the players will go along with it because it's the thing you're excited by. Want to see Matt Colville at Baltimore Comic-Con? I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I think that the cons we're probably going to target are PAX Unplugged, Gen Con, and Gamehole Con probably, maybe Gary Con, maybe another con. Instead of Gary Con, I think Gary Con's kind of it's an invitation. I have been invited, and I like Luke a lot, and I like what those guys do, and they do a lot of charity work, and I just love that tradition of gaming. So going to Gary Con would be a big deal. But like, I'm invited to Gary Con, but I don't like traveling alone. I don't like going to things alone and being alone. So it would be something where we would go, and that's a much larger production. So there's a sort of a misalignment between all the cons we want to go to and what am I currently reading? I'm rereading Dune because a bunch of people here are reading it. So one of the things, I'm going to tell you folks something that some of you will get excited by, even though it may not turn into anything. And that's the downside of transparency. The upside of transparency is all the stuff we do here, especially if you're in the live streams. The live streams are where kind of the nuts and bolts of how MCDM is run is talked about. I only update Kingdoms and Warfare when there's something about Kingdoms and Warfare to talk about. But we live stream a couple times a week and talk about all sorts of nonsense that goes on here. The downside of that is I talk about stuff that I want to do, and sometimes the stuff I want to do doesn't work out. There's no there is one way I'm like, this seems like a cool idea. And then I start working and I go, no, this isn't going to work. But probably Car Wars, T Brown. I don't know, Cam Cakes. That's a good question. Feats. Hawkmoon, probably. Ian, even though that's kind of an off-topic thing. Have I ever written to a letter column? Oh, sure. Comics when I was a kid. Not personally, Lawler Wolf. That's not somebody I follow. I don't follow a lot. I routinely, a lot of people here I know for the first time because we don't stream to YouTube that often. I do not follow D&D content creators on YouTube or even really Twitch typically. If they're like Level Up Dice and I buy their products, absolutely I do. But otherwise, I create D&D content, and D&D is now kind of my job. So the people I follow on YouTube are my hobbies and my other stuff. I spend my D&D time making stuff, typically not consuming it. I'm not PAX Unplugged because we fucked up. I'm not going to lie to you. We fucked up. Yeah, I've shaved before, and I like being clean shaven, and I like having a beard. I like mixing it up. So, I do not, Alex Gigo. Well, John Davis, you'll know when we hire a full-time... Who do we need full-time in order to be able to really go to a convention? I don't know if it's a full-time community. We need. I don't know if it would be a community manager person or if it would be a social media person. One of those people. I don't know which. So we have a Patreon, and the Patreon exists for people that want to support us, but don't want to buy any of the products that we've made, which is fair, or don't want to subscribe to Twitch and give us $2.50 a month, and Amazon, which doesn't need the money, gets $2.50. Or they've already done that and they want to support us more. That's what Patreon is for. That being said, I would like to be able to kind of give the patrons stuff if I can think of anything. And then the trick is just what can I think of? And right now, really all you get if you're a patron is you get my notes, typically, I think. And there's some fiction I started writing I haven't finished that I would like to upload to Patreon. Okay. But I'm always thinking, what could I do? What could I do? Well, I had an idea. And we talked about this before because I think all you folks know that the Chain of Akron is playing Dungeons and Dragons in a giant metropolitan fantasy city called Capital. That's the proper name of the city. And the map of Capital is based on a projection, not the official one. It's unofficial enough that people didn't recognize when they saw it, of a real world game called Diplomacy. And I wanted to run the Capital's, it's called the greatest city in this or any age, which is literally true in my world. There has never been an earlier civilization that has a city as big as Capital. So the greatest city of this or any age is kind of what everyone in all of Orden thinks of it. That's the propaganda coming out of it. But the people who live in it somewhat cynically refer to it as the city of the great game. And the great game is politics, spies, diplomacy. So diplomacy map, city of the great game, 7 factions, neutral territories, setting up. And I originally had an idea that when I was running the Chain of Akron, I would pick friends of mine, and I reached out to some of them, including people you know who are actually quite more famous than me, and said, would you be interested in taking on one of these roles? And they were like, fuck yeah, that would be fucking cool as shit. I love that idea. And I was like, awesome. And then I didn't do it. And I didn't do it because it wouldn't have worked. That could have gone very badly because there's a giant fucking plasma ball right there. And if this thing had hit it, I would have been not only covered in glass, but also neon or whatever, argon or whatever the fuck is in there. Why are you not behaving? Stand by. Like a fox on the run. She do. What? How do you even? Anyway, hi, hey everybody, Matt Colville here. Hi. So yeah, Matt Colville talking to you now, being really close to the microphone. Not entirely sure why the microphone decided to detach from its arm, or what I have to do to get it back on. But right now, it's not behaving. So, Caleb Baker, thanks for stopping by. Hi, I'm your video DJ. So what were we talking about? Yeah, so the reason that would not have worked, and I couldn't just go to my friends in LA and say, hey, or my friends, some of whom you know, and say, hey, you want to play one of these and just play Diplomacy, is that unlike Diplomacy, the actual game Diplomacy, which I have played many times and introduced to, at this point, probably, actually, thanks to YouTube, now thousands of people. We crashed their website after I did my Diplomacy video. there are pre-existing alliances, or even not alliances, tendencies, trends. The noble houses are opposed to the guilds, and there should be the opportunity for one of the noble houses to break the traditions and the ethics of their compatriots and ally with one of the guilds. That should be possible, but we'd have to have it. It would have to be a different game, frankly. It would have to be not vanilla diplomacy. It would have to be diplomacy that had some mechanisms, something in it that was pushing these players toward being allied. It does help to write your problems down. CXV4662, you're right. Sometimes just sitting down, saying, Jason, I got a question, and explaining your problem to somebody, which sometimes they call like throwing up a duck, explaining your problems to somebody is all it takes. Oh, thank you, Blade Monkey. So, yeah, exactly. Zoo the viewer, exactly. Like Dune, even Dune, you don't start with alliances. Like right now, House Alvaro, House Navarre, House Verona are all basically allied. Are all basically allied. The guilds are definitely allied. The opportunity exists for those alliances to break, but when starting diplomacy, that's not true. No one's allied with anybody. The only thing that kind of creates necessity for alliance is proximity. That's it. So I was thinking about this. So I threw that idea out. I'm like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. There would be no reason for the House Verona player to treat the House Alvaro player any differently than the Broadsheets player. And that is not capital. That is very ahistoric to capital. So we would need some kind of better system for that. All right. And maybe because we play Dune, but having now read a big chunk, not all of, but a big chunk of the writers and the work they've been doing in the Player's Guide to Capital. Thank you for the cash. Person whose name ends in PSN that I can't pronounce the first part. It's like Christy SME. Alexander Poljanek, go play some of the D&D board games. So reading all this, now I know a lot more about capital. In fact, arguably, I probably know more about capital than anybody now, which maybe was always true. But now that I've read all of this cool stuff these folks have invented, I'm like, I got an idea. I think I'm a good enough designer. We'll see. I want to try it. I want the patrons on Patreon to play the leaders of the 7 great houses. And it be diplomacy, and them submit orders. We'd have to come up with a process for this, and I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but I have some ideas. Probably be as simple as voting, but it might be something where each faction has a leader or something, whatever. I have other ideas about that. But then when we live stream D&D, and I announce in the live stream, hey, a new broadsheet is out, and the turn has advanced, and here's the new map of capital. And everyone's like, oh! The viewers also each, if you type in chat, it assigns you a great house, and that's your house, and you have the power to react positively or negatively to the policies that the patrons on Patreon are enacting, and that there could be rules for things like unrest, like morale rules, so that you could have scenarios where the patrons issue an order and the army doesn't obey because the people are unhappy. The people are the people watching live. The people issuing the orders are the people on Patreon. If I could get that to work, that'd be some shit. So, I think it's possible. We'll have to see. It may not be possible. I may not be a good enough designer. And when I say that, like, diplomacy is one of the greatest games ever made. People will be playing diplomacy long after I and all of us are dead. It is somewhat of an act of hubris to imagine that I could graft on top of it some kind of set of rules. But having played in games, you guys, I don't know, did I ever tell you folks about the L5R? You guys watched the L5R video, right? Hello, Mr. Rob's Cleaning Service. We're getting toward the end of the stream, I'm afraid. 90 minutes is a good amount of time. Okay, so did I tell you folks the story about the L5R game I played at the convention that could only be played at the convention? People are saying yes. Good. Are you saying yes to the thing before or yes to this part? Yes. So that that idea of I'm playing the daimyo of the clan, the analogy here being I'm a patron on Patreon. I'm playing the daimyo of a clan, and I'm talking to the other daimyos. But then I have to give orders to the shoguns who run the armies out in another room at the convention. And there's a runner, a person in the real world, person who's going to take my orders and run them over there and try to explain and has to understand my orders well enough to communicate. And that's Fog of War and Command and Control. It's the best Command and Control game I've ever played. That sense of there's those of us over here making deals, forging alliances, and then there's you folks out in this other room, the other room being Twitch chat, who aren't privy to some of this stuff and may react poorly to it. Well, you know, an unhappy populace can be as dangerous as an army. If I can simulate that, and that's one of those things that makes me look back at all the things I've done in my life, and like how many people on YouTube, how many people running D&D on YouTube have played that one L5R game that they never made into a product because you needed 30 people to play it? None. It's me. So why not try to take some of that stuff I've learned and try to graft it onto diplomacy? We'll see. I can't promise it's going to work or even happen, but it's something I really want to do. So the context for this is I pitched this here at work, and folks here at work were like, well, I feel like I don't know enough about what you're talking about to weigh in on it meaningfully. Maybe we should play diplomacy. And that brings us to the topic of tonight's stream. Hi, hey everybody, Matt Colville here. So one of the things that happens whenever I get an idea, and this happened with Strongholds and Followers. When I said, hey, we're going to make this book called Strongholds and Followers. Thank you, Caleb West. I don't know, something, I think things that if you, third level characters like movement stuff. It's fun, but it doesn't break the game. Flying carpet, boots of movement, springing and striding. Hello, Kermit the Frog here. One of the things that happens whenever I talk about something I want to do is people always come out of the woodwork and they say, Matt, why are you talking about that? That thing already exists. Yeah, everything already exists. That's not a good reason not to do it. Movies already exist, but for some reason people keep making them. So like there was a book for 3rd edition or even 2nd edition, I think, called the Castle Builder's Guidebook, the Stronghold Builder's Guidebook or something like that. And a bunch of people were like, I don't understand why you would make that thing, Strongholds and Followers, when this thing already exists. Why are you doing that? I'm like, because I want to do it my way. Because I want to do it my way. Because I'm a game designer. There are already games. But that's not a good enough reason not to ever make another one. So when people are like, Matt, somebody's already doing this. It's like, that's great. I wish them luck. I'm sure it's awesome. But one of the reasons people support us is because they want to know, how does Matt Colville do this? So I get it. You're trying to help. Don't get me wrong. You're trying to help and you're saying, wait. Go read this book this company wrote. It's got a lot of ideas in there. But then I would be implementing my reaction to their ideas, and you shouldn't want that. Because you can go get that product and use it to how you see fit. And if you just sit tight and wait, you'll get my version of it, and you can look at my version of it, and then you can steal the bits from both that you like the best, and you get a better product. So that should be the goal. T. Brown, I think you're probably right. And this is something every game I've ever worked on, while we were working on that game, some very similar game was announced or came out. Thank you, God Hunter 6789. The sequel to God Hunter 2345. Every game I've ever worked on, every video game I've ever worked on, every tabletop game I've ever worked on, some other game was either announced or came out while we were in development, and the developers started freaking out. I'm like, guys, what are you worried about? Like, ours is going to be uniquely ours, and that's going to be its strength, is it's going to be ours. So don't give up on something, and don't try to discourage me by saying, Matt, this thing already exists. This other person's already doing it. Just go do what they're doing. The thing that excites me is the designing of it. I'm a game designer. I'm a writer and a game designer. If I want to write a fantasy novel, I go, well, somebody already wrote a fantasy novel. That's not a good enough reason not to. So, we're gonna try it. We'll see what happens. I don't know when I'm gonna have time for this, but I can kind of worry at this over the break while I'm working on the heist. But we start playing diplomacy. So let's see how the first diplomacy turn went. We are gonna go on to. We're gonna switch to our view, so you'll be able to see my screen up here. Go check my profile and see where is the current diplomacy game, and we're all going to look at the map. This is the first move. There's been one move of diplomacy. So, we'll put this up here, and we're going to pop this out. And I'm going to change views, and you folks should see my new view here. Yay, it's working already. So, I can't see chat right now. Come back, chat. Chat, don't leave me. Chat. There we go. Hello, welcome back. Professor Jugs, if I learn anything about it, yes. Transmute. You folks want transmute, so let's go back to Q&A. Hang on. Okay, ready? Next time we see each other, I'll be facing in another direction. I'll be here, but I'll be squished, and I'll be translated through multiple dimensions. Stand by. Here we go. Transmute. Hello. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I know I look much smaller and as though I've been extruded through a different set of dimensions so that now I'm facing the other way. But how is the YouTube chat interface really any different than the Twitch interface? It looks basically the same to me. Tom Cameron, you can go read them. Go read Against the Cult of the Reptile God. I've made videos talking about the adventures that we've played before. I mean, I don't mean to dismiss what you're saying, but you're asking a question that would take quite a long time to answer, and a lot of those adventures we've talked about in videos. So this is the starting map, and actually, can we advance the plot a little bit here? Yep, and this is the first. These are everybody's first moves. So let's take a look around the board. Let's take a little tour of the board. In fact, we can zoom in, I think. Nope. We can zoom in, I think. Yeah, here we go. Maybe I should open this in Photoshop so I can. So Russia, let's start with England, because England had a very bad opening move, and you can tell that of the 7 players, I'm not playing in this diplomacy game. Trans rights. I'm not playing in this diplomacy game, so I'm not one of these players. And all of them are friends of mine. These are all, it's Wes, whom I don't think you folks have met Wes. And it's Ray, whom some of you know from Minecraft. And then otherwise it's Tom, and Matt O'Driscoll, and Lars, and Anna. So you know 5 of the players, and 2 of them you may not have met before. 1 of them you may have. But I'm not going to say who's who. But of them, Wes and Ray and Lars have played a lot. The rest have either only ever played once or never. So a lot to talk about here. Obviously, England actually has no idea what's going on in this game. That's not a criticism, it's an observation. Because like the simplest, most basic rule of diplomacy is that you can only ever have 1 unit in any country or territory. So if there's a boat in the Gulf of Bothnia, there can't be a second boat in the Gulf of Bothnia. If there is an army here in the Ukraine, there can't be a second army in the Ukraine of anybody's. Russia can't put a second army here. No one else can. You can only ever have 1 unit in any territory. And I know for a fact that this player had that explained to them several times in several different mediums, and it didn't catch. And that sometimes is a sign that that player is not super interested in the rules per se. Sometimes people they fall in love with the fantasy of diplomacy, and it's all about negotiation, and they don't really take the actual game mechanics seriously. That happens. And it's also possible to just literally make a mistake. It is a web interface, and sometimes you just aren't, you don't scroll down far enough to click the thing you want to click, and you literally just make a mistake and fuck up that as possible. Although in this instance, I have it on good authority. It's because this player didn't know that's how this worked. So Edinburgh and London both tried to move to the North Sea. That's not legal. They bounced. Liverpool to Yorkshire makes sense because they want to try to. It's unfortunate because it basically means England misses like 1 year's worth of activity. And I suggested to the players that they just stop and start over again, because if this were a real game that you were playing in person and it was the first turn and England revealed their moves, everyone would go, no, that's not how, no, you don't get it. You made a mistake. Let's just start over again. Or they would say, just write down the moves you meant to write. Here's the thing. We don't have to start over again. Just do what you intended to do. And that's fine. But unfortunately, the web diplomacy interface does not allow that. But they said, no, let's just keep playing. I think mostly because it's like, we're only doing this because we want to try to understand diplomacies, because MCDM might make something like this. A scale of 1 to 10, how important is politics in long campaigns? I would say 0. Beard Bear. There's no, you can run a long campaign without ever having any politics of any kind show up, and everyone has a good time and it's fun. So it's not necessary or sufficient. France has, so here's France and here's Italy. France and Italy very clearly seem to have an understanding, because this unit here in Marseille, what it does says a lot about who France is talking to and what they're saying. Keep in mind, I do not know who they're talking to. I only know what their orders are, and sometimes they ask me questions about how the game works. But other than that, none of these players talk policy to me. So Marseille did not move to Piedmont. That would be a very aggressive anti-Italian thing to do. But even just like moving up here into Burgundy means that France and Italy have probably spoken, and have an agreement, and Italy is not moving aggressively toward Marseille. Right? Because right now, if next turn this army in Venice moves to Piedmont, France's strategy has to change abruptly, because now they've got an army knocking on their door, and they have Marseille. They may end up with Marseille undefended. So obviously, what France is trying to do, France has a couple of options: quick and easy unit grabs here in the Iberian Peninsula, which they didn't go for. These tan colored places are neutral. So the first year of the game, the first 2 years of the game, usually don't have direct conflict, because the game is designed so that there's enough of these neutral territories that you can spend the first year, maybe the second year, just grabbing up the neutral territories, and then you're out of elbow room, and now you have to fight. The black spot is it's the Swiss Alps. It's unpassable. So the fact that France has moved north tells me they have an understanding with Italy, and we'll get to Italy in a second. They're not afraid of Italy. That doesn't necessarily mean they're allied with Italy, but it means they have an agreement. Paris to Picardy and Marseille to Burgundy looks like an anti-German move right now to me. I have a sneaking suspicion France and England were planning on who knows. But Berlin to Kiel, like, it's not really possible right now for Germany to stop France from taking Belgium. And I don't know. I think probably Germany was going to try to support Kiel, is going to next turn support Kiel into Holland from Ruhr. So Germany takes Holland, France takes Belgium. But with this happening up here, who knows what's going to go on? Who knows? The fact that France is in the English Channel to me is crazy. This is a super anti-English move. Usually you get a Black Sea scenario. Usually it's more cordial than this. We'll get to this. But the fact that France is in the English Channel combined with this, the players I think have largely just decided to take it easy on England for a couple of rounds and let them kind of catch up. That's fine. We'll see if that works. So we've covered France's policy. We've covered England's policy. Germany seems to pretty clearly have an understanding with Russia, right? They don't appear to be trying to defend against Russian invasion of Berlin. Russia's going this way, Germany's going that way. That tends to mean they've spoken and things are going well. If Germany went this way and Russia went this way, that would mean they'd spoken and Germany and Russia was trying to stab them in round one. That's super unusual. So these folks seem to have an arrangement. All this stuff I'm talking about could be complete bullshit. It could be coincidence. It could be meaningless. It could be misleading. It's my commentary. I'm not a scientist, man. So Germany's automatically going to get Denmark. Germany right now with what's going on here. If I were Germany, I would be like, Ruhr to Holland, supported by Kiel. Let France have Belgium, and I get 2 units at the end of 1901. Good luck, France. Whatever was between them before, Germany is going to be on a stronger footing. And I don't think with no unit in the North Sea, there's nothing anybody can do to stop this movement. Ruhr to Holland, supported by Kiel. Germany takes Holland. Period. France can't stop them. England can't stop them. Germany gets Denmark and Holland. A very strong opening for Germany. Well, Munich, no one's well, yeah, I guess Burgundy to Munich would be pretty devastating. So this is when the game becomes a gamble, and you have to talk to these. You guys have to talk to each other, because Burgundy could just move into Munich. Obviously, Ruhr could stop it. Ruhr to Munich would be a bounce. So it's possible that you could go Picardy to Belgium, Burgundy to Munich, and maybe take both of these. So Germany and France really have to talk to each other. Because this, like I said, my first reaction was this is a very aggressive anti-German move. We'll see what happens. Russia, classic, Gulf of Bothnia, moving south. This is very telling. I've played in games where Turkey and Russia never came to an agreement, and they literally basically played each a man down, and every single round bounced off the Black Sea because neither of them even trusted each other. Usually France and England can come to an arrangement, so just no one enters the English Channel. But for some reason, this tends to be a lot more aggressive because they gotta, either of these guys, if they want to use this boat, they gotta come out through here, which means somebody needs to use the Black Sea. So don't be surprised if you watch these guys bounce over and over again. So this looks pretty good to me. Austria, never a strong player, never a strong position, but Austria going to Serbia is pretty good. Of course, Galicia to Budapest isn't great. Vienna holds. Vienna can support. Vienna could move into. Becomes a mind game, right? If Vienna moves to Budapest to block Galicia, Budapest, then Galicia. If Russia guesses that, then Galicia to Vienna. Russia takes Vienna. So this is not a great position for Russia. Hopefully, these guys are talking. Austria's got to be talking to somebody because Austria is the sick man of Europe and is going to be fucking boned if they don't. Yeah, you can move. You can go along the coast. You can go Ankara to Constantinople. That's true. Not right now, obviously. So it looks like Italy. Let's come back to these guys. Italy holds in Venice, holds in Rome. Tyrrhenian Sea, there is Tunis. So next round, Italy, at the end of 1901. Rome to Tunis, convoyed by Tyrrhenian Sea. Italy takes Tunis. Italy's in a relatively strong position to take fucking Spain if they focus on it. So we don't really know. The only person I feel strongly that Italy's talking to is probably France. And hold here is very interesting. It means that Austria doesn't feel secure with Italy. It means that Austria doesn't feel like it can leave these two spaces open, because if Trieste goes to Budapest, Vienna. So what Austria wants is on spring 1901 this unit to move to Tuscany or Piedmont or fucking anywhere, because staying here means this boat in Trieste basically has to stay there. It can't leave, and Trieste can't support Vienna. It can't support Vienna into Budapest because you can only support a move you could make, and navies can't go into landlocked territories. So these guys have not been speaking, or if they have, it has not been very fruitful, because Venice is just sitting here waiting. When are you going to move, Trieste? When are you going to move? I'm curious, Matt, will you answer D&D questions? Well, it's been an hour and 43 minutes, and I've spent quite a lot of time answering D&D questions. So my recommendation is that you either go to the Discord, where our Discord and the subreddit are both incredibly useful for people looking for advice or help. And Discord often is very immediate. Both of them are very well managed, I think. And we do live streams on Twitch. Probably I'll do one tomorrow. So if I didn't get your question today, come by Twitch tomorrow. Or I think from now on, every time I upload a running the game video, that Friday evening, we'll live stream, and hopefully we get to hang out again. Hey, Matt, how do I primarily use Cobalt Fight Club? I do not. I'm sure I have used it in the past, but I don't use it currently. Well, I'm not running D&D right now. I don't really have I throw monsters at my players based on my understanding of the history of D&D and giving the stats a gloss. I don't worry too much about CR, which is what Cobalt Fight Club is mostly about. So, Yeah. Who's having a good year? In spite of this, I feel like Turkey's having a pretty good year. Austria's making progress, but I really feel like Austria right now is not first tier in terms of progress. These two units just sitting around. Italy, it's funny because Italy has two units just sitting around, but it's about to grab Tunis, which is pretty good. So even though they're kind of equal in terms of moves, I still feel like Italy seems like they're talking to France. France is doing great. I think it's got to figure out what to do here. Germany is doing pretty well. England is also playing. Russia wants Romania, right? I mean, it could try to take Budapest, and we could do the whole mind game thing where Galicia to Vienna works because Vienna goes to Budapest. But I think it's more likely Ukraine to Romania, supported by Galicia. That seems incredibly likely to me. Or even more likely, Sevastopol to Romania, supported by Ukraine and Galicia. That might be a waste of time, just because you don't need. There's no. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. If Austria and Turkey are talking, it could be Bulgaria to Romania, supported by Serbia, and that would bounce Ukraine to Romania, supported by Galicia. But Sevastopol to Romania, supported by Ukraine and Galicia, would beat Bulgaria or Serbia to Romania, supported by the other, and no one else can support their threes more than two. Russia takes Romania. So that might be worth having these two units just sitting there, and now you got your fleet out of Romania. What the hell are you going to do with it at that point? I don't know. But is it worth surrendering the Black Sea? Because then you lose Sevastopol. Depends. These guys got to talk. Turkey and Russia have to talk. So that's my take on what's going on here. The alliances will become more evident as the game progresses. But yeah, it's really hard for Russia to get anything done if it's constantly having to watch its back. That's true. Each country has a problem like that. Some countries have multiple problems like that. Do I have any interest in learning music theory? Yeah, of course. I'm slowly learning music theory. I subscribe to a lot of music. I subscribe to 12 Tone and Rick Beato. So I took music in college, but I don't remember any of it. I am not a master diplomat. I am not particularly good at diplomacy. I don't really have the temperament or patience for it. There's a difference between loving a game and actually being good at it. So that's my reaction to all of this nonsense. William Bosley, even if it wasn't cool with me, that's the point of them being open. Knock yourself out. Nick Yukao says, if I was in Austria's position, what would I have done differently, and what would I do based on the current board state? Well, all right, that's a good question. Let's talk about it. I don't know that I would have done anything differently. I haven't looked up. I played all these countries, and I played Austria relatively recently. I would have talked to Italy and make sure Italy get out of Venice. I would say Venice to Tuscany, or Venice to Piedmont. And I'll say, listen, I'm going to go down to Greece. So Trieste, you're going to see, I'm not going to go into the Adriatic. So you will see that I am not being aggressive toward you by me not going into the Adriatic. You don't be aggressive toward me. Get the fuck out of Venice. And then we can both, I would be honest and try to be persuasive and say that unit in Venice can be used elsewhere. It's sitting here isn't doing you any good. I'm going to go Trieste, Albania, and then Greece and try to take Greece. Meanwhile, I'd be talking to Russia and be like, hey, let's figure out what to do. I definitely don't want Russia and Turkey aligned. I want them at each other's throats. I want to convince Russia that we can work together to carve up whatever part of the world this is called. I don't know if there's a name for this literal place north of Greece. And let's concentrate on Germany. It shouldn't be hard to get Russia to agree that it needs friends in the attack against Germany, because all players in this game learn very quickly that like Germany is surrounded by enemies, so it has to deal. And if it does, and it makes a good deal, all of a sudden Germany explodes and just grows enormously at someone's cost. So that's what I would be trying to do. I'd be trying to go down here, get my fleet. My fleet doesn't do any good here. Try to take Greece, maybe communicate with Turkey and make sure that, like, I got to pick one of these two people and divide this up. And it might even be, I might even try to broker a deal. I might even try to broker a deal between these two and say, listen, why doesn't Russia take Romania? Why don't we agree that Russia's going to take Romania, Turkey's going to take Bulgaria, we're going to take Serbia and call it good. And I would try to tell these guys, don't fight over the Black Sea, and see what happens. See what happens. So hopefully some of that made sense to you folks. And now, as you can see, this is the rules of the game. There's no mechanism in this game to force two players to work together or even really incentivize them to work together. That's what the great game would need. It would need something where we have starting conditions where the rules of the game pressure two players into working together. Doesn't force them to, but it pressures them to do so that if they break an alliance, there's some meaningful thing. Is that the Balkans? So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I thought the stream went really well. If I didn't answer your question, or if I was short with you or dismissive, I apologize. I don't mean to be, but we got a lot of questions to get through. And we do these streams quite a lot, and I've produced quite a lot of YouTube content. So when folks ask questions that I feel like we've dealt with before or are grossly off topic, I tend to be like, we've covered that. And I don't mean like, oh, I can't believe you're asking this. I mean, go to the Discord and ask. People do this all the time, by the way. They say, hey, what was the video Matt put up where he talked about this one thing? And people go, it was this one video, and they'll link to it and you get answers. So, I don't know if it's open. I think it is basically open. Yeah, I think Preston Garland, I think we'll probably do lots of these where we meet several times a week. They're not going to play over the weekend. They're going to pause over the weekend. So next move is Monday evening, and we'll probably stream Monday evening and talk about the next move. And hopefully you guys get a kick out of it and have a blast watching. I'm enjoying watching. That's one of the things I've thought about Juxtaposed Stars. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I love doing these chats. We normally do them on Twitch, but I do not want to neglect the YouTube audience because I think basically the MCDM community is the YouTube community. I was very happy with the reception to the downtime video. After we recorded it, it was a very difficult video to record for some reason. I wasn't in the zone. And so I was having to repeat myself over and over and over again to try to get the presentation where I wanted it to be. And that left me with the feeling that the video was very repetitive. And it is more repetitive than a lot of the scripts I've done, but on purpose, it's a script. I did edit it down from its original length, and I do believe it is repetition for emphasis, which is, I think, fine. And I was sort of expecting it to be 50-50, but it's not. It's actually probably 80-20. People are really happy with that downtime video, and that makes me happy. If only because I just want to let people know these options exist and this play style exists, because I think that's an opportunity for some people to enrich their game. Anyway. Alex, this is on YouTube. It'll be, if you missed this stream, if you missed the Monday, actually it'll be on Twitch. You can watch a video on demand on Twitch on Monday. That's cool, Paul. I got to tell one of my favorite D&D stories. Two really good D&D stories, but my all-time favorite D&D story. So that made me happy. I think we'll probably be streaming tomorrow night. I can't promise. It depends. Today was rough. I think I spent 5 hours in the car today. That was fun. And the header literally was late for this. It felt terrible because all these people are waiting and I let them down. But I got here and we did what I consider to be a pretty good stream. So tomorrow is unknown, but follow me on Twitter if you want to know, because I usually will let people know a couple of hours if I'm like, yep, this is going to work. I will post something on Twitter saying, hey, we're going to have a live stream. And apart from that, that's a good question, Robert Kemp. I don't know. Until next time, folks, I hope you have a great weekend. It's Friday night here on the West Coast. I know it's different times in other parts of the world. They also serve who only stand and wait. Until next time, be seeing you.